Welcome back to Turkish Spotlight Secrets, your favorite corner for the juiciest stories behind the spotlight. I'm thrilled to sit with you today because we're diving into a moment that has everyone buzzing, a ripple that turned into a wave across timelines, group chats, and fan forums. We're talking about the way Gökberk Yildirim reacted to a request from none other than the radiant Cemre Arda. Yes, that Cemre, and yes, that Gökberk. What did she ask? What did he say? And more importantly, where does this lead? That question is the headline today, and together we're going to peel back every layer, examine every whisper, and search for the truth tucked between what was said and what was left unsaid. If you love these two, if you savor a good mystery wrapped in stardust and sentiment, stay with me until the end. And before we begin, if you're new here or you haven't yet, hit subscribe to Turkish Spotlight Secrets. It costs nothing, it helps us so much, and it guarantees you won't miss the next twist. Ready? Let's get into it. The story detonated online and spread with the force of pure nostalgia. A single interaction between Cemre Arda and Gökberk Yildirim was enough to set everything alight. Fans of Turkish television remember their on-screen partnership with the kind of fondness usually reserved for classic songs, the way they looked at each other, the timing, the laughter, the silent glances that said more than whole monologues. Time has passed since their last project together, and both have walked their own remarkable paths, but the feeling their names ignite when placed side by side hasn't faded. And that brings us to the moment in question. Cemre, in a gesture that caught even the most seasoned watchers off guard, made a request of Gökberk. The content of the request remains deliberately vague, but its impact is anything but. That mystery has become the engine of speculation. Was it a pitch for a professional collaboration? A favor from one friend to another? A light-hearted challenge meant to tease fans? No official statement spells it out, and maybe that's the point. The silence has become a canvas onto which everyone paints their own version of the truth. The strongest rumor is this: Cemre invited Gökberk to consider joining her on a new project, something that would tap into the magic they once captured while pointing towards something fresh, contemporary, and daring. Think reunion, yes, but not a retread. Think a story that respects who they were together while testing who they could be now. The very idea has fans holding their breath. Into that space came Gökberk's response, or, more precisely, the reaction people believe they saw. It wasn't an emphatic yes. It wasn't a hard no. It was something with the careful elasticity that invites interpretation. We're talking about small tells. The timing of a like, a measured comment during an interview, a smile that lingered a second longer than usual when her name surfaced, a pause that hinted at thoughts still forming. Some read his reaction as sincere interest tempered by caution, a signal that he's genuinely thinking it over. Others see it as a kind of genteel restraint, a balancing act meant to manage expectations without shutting the door. No matter which camp you're in, one thing is obvious: he noticed, he considered, and he chose his words with care. Let's follow the first possibility, a professional collaboration. Imagine the kind of project that could accommodate both of their strengths now, not just the sparkle of their shared past. The nostalgia is potent, yes, but what if this isn't about nostalgia alone? What if Cemre's request carries a script that digs deeper, a story with the emotional intelligence and tonal risk that both of them have grown into? For any producer with instincts, putting these two back together is a masterstroke. The ratings would watch themselves. The press would write itself. The audience, already primed, would do the rest. And you know Gökberk, disciplined, deliberate, and ruthless about the roles he chooses. If Cemre placed in front of him a character that challenges him, surprises him, and gives him a new range to play, why wouldn't he lean forward? And yet, we have to honor the other path. Maybe the request wasn't about a set or a camera. Maybe it was personal. Maybe she wanted him at a private event that mattered to her. Maybe she asked for advice about a role that mirrored a crossroads he's already navigated. Maybe it was a friendly gesture that we, in our hunger for a bigger storyline, turned into a saga. If that's the case, then his careful response fits a man who values boundaries. But even then, the question remains, why did a simple request echo this loudly? why did it grip so many hearts? The simplest answer might be the truest, because when these two orbit each other, the atmosphere changes. To decode it further, we have to talk about who they are. Gökberk Yildirim has a reputation for restraint. He doesn't posture. He doesn't flood the feed with half-formed thoughts. When he speaks, it's because he's chosen to. He's the type who protects process, who treats his career like a craft rather than a carousel. Cemre Arda, on the other hand, is sunlight with a plan. She has warmth, a grounded ease with her audience, and a spontaneity that feels authentic rather than performative. Together, their dynamics have always balanced cool precision and bright openness, a duet of complementary energies. So if Cemre made a bold ask, isn't it natural that Gökberk met it with a careful pause, surprise first, reflection next, and only then, a measured move? Now, let's stretch those possibilities to their horizon. If Cemre's request does involve a screen reunion, what shape could it take? A limited series with a cinematic pulse, something that travels and trends? A feature that leans into romance but isn't afraid of bruises and edges? Something playful for social platforms that tests the waters before a bigger leap? The strategies are endless. And here's the thing, Cemre and Gökberk have graduated from the season of youthful charm. They're in the era where choices define legacies. This is the moment when a well-aimed project can realign careers, expand audiences, and remind people why certain names stir an old ache. On the other hand, a quieter request can matter just as much. The two of them have a private history behind the public one, shared days on set, long nights learning lines, the secret shorthand born from hitting an emotional scene in unison. The bonds formed in that kind of pressure don't vanish with time, they deepen and transform. So yes, an invitation to a private milestone could deserve a response that's cautious. The problem for the rest of us is we can't help wanting the bigger narrative. And maybe, just maybe, they know that. It's worth entertaining a third possibility, one that lives somewhere between authenticity and orchestration. In this business, leaks are sometimes just seeds, planted to see how the ground responds. A reaction video here, a coy interview answer there, and suddenly momentum becomes measurable. If that's part of the plan, then Gökberk's ambiguity isn't evasive, it's strategic. He's keeping oxygen in the room. He's letting the anticipation grow without suffocating it with certainty. At the same time, anyone who has followed them closely recognizes how genuine their interactions feel. They don't push drama. They don't manufacture scandal. Their magic is quieter than that. If this is a strategy, it's one built on honesty rather than artifice. As the days rolled on, the fan theories multiplied. Some parsed body language in slow motion, hunting for signals. Some revisited their past scenes, remembering the pauses, the glances, the instinctive timing, asking how those threads could be woven into something modern. A few argued that a reunion could never touch what came before, while others insisted that they were never just nostalgia, they were always potential. The discourse itself became part of the story, a chorus of voices humming a harmony of hope and caution. In my view, everything points to this, Gökberk is genuinely considering Cemre's request. He's not one to make impulsive choices. He tallies the risks, weighs the rewards, and asks whether a project honors the audience that grew with him and the artist he's become. If he says yes, it will be because the material passes every test, because the character stretches him, because the story has teeth and tenderness, because the offer respects the person behind the name. And if he says no, it won't be because he doesn't believe in Cemre. It will be because the timing isn't right, or the fit isn't exact, and he's protecting both of their legacies from a misstep. Let's not forget what these two proved together. Chemistry isn't just a spark, it's also craft. It's the patience to hold a gaze an extra beat, the willingness to listen with your whole face, the humility to let silence carry the line. They did that. They earned the affection, not by accident, but by intention. If this request is a chance to bring that back in a way that feels lived in rather than recycled, the outcome could be electric. We also have to look at the industry stage. Their generation sits at a crossroads. Audiences are global now, and the conversation around storytelling has broadened. A premium series, a carefully built feature, a digital-first event, any of these could serve as the perfect container if the content is right. And yes, sometimes whispers precede announcements by design, especially when stakeholders want proof that public appetite is there. If the ripples we're seeing were meant to measure the tide, the answer is clear: people care. People are ready. Still, the simplest truth remains the hardest: we don't know what will happen next. The request from Cemre set the air vibrating. The reaction from Gökberk kept that vibration humming. Between those two moments, anticipation took root. Will they walk onto a set together again? Will they let us in on a personal moment with the intimacy of two old friends who still speak the same language? Or will they let this pass, allowing it to live as a beautiful what-if that keeps the legend intact? If I had to place a bet, I'd say the door is open. I'd say he's thinking not just with his head, but with his gut, the way artists do when something calls to them from beyond the logic of schedules and contracts. And I'd say Cemre knew exactly what she was doing when she asked. She aimed for the part of him that remembers how good it felt to create something bigger than the two of them, the part that understands how rare that feeling is and how precious it is when it returns. Before we close, a quick word to the believers and the skeptics alike. Whatever unfolds, the reason this moment matters is that it reminds us why we got invested in the first place. Because we watched two people build a world we wanted to step into, because we felt seen in the delicate rhythms of their scenes, because we recognized honesty in the way they played. That isn't just entertainment. That's connection. And connection doesn't vanish, it finds new ways to surface. So here we are, waiting. If a project is announced, we'll be ready to analyze every casting hint, every behind-the-scenes photo, every clue tucked into a caption. If it turns out to be personal, we'll celebrate that two people who once made art together still choose kindness toward each other. And if it amounts to nothing more than a moment that stirred our collective imagination, we'll still be grateful for the reminder that the door to wonder is never truly closed. To recap, we traced the spark that began with a request from Cemre Arda and followed it through the measured, intriguing reaction of Gökberk Yildirim. We weighed possibilities: professional collaboration, personal outreach, or a softly orchestrated test of the waters. We considered their personalities, their shared history, the state of the industry, and the hopes of a fandom that knows exactly what these two can become when they align. The only answer we don't have yet is the one that matters most: what will they do? Until they choose, the future sits like a held breath. Now it's your turn. What do you think? Cemre asked. Do you believe Gökberk is leaning toward yes? Could this be the moment that brings them back to the screen as partners in story, or is this a private exchange that simply bloomed too brightly for the public to ignore? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them all. If you enjoyed this deep dive, tap like, share this with fellow fans who still carry a soft spot for these two, and make sure you're subscribed to Turkish Spotlight Secrets so you don't miss the next clue. Thank you for watching until the end. I'll be back very soon with more stories, more analysis, and more reasons to fall in love with the art of it all. Big hug, and see you in the next one.